felt was kind of a misnomer rather, in the sense that it, as we know, it extends from North Palm Beach all the way down to Ocean Ridge, and actually the watershed from Palm Beach Gardens down to Boca Raton. So hopefully we have folks from all over the area here today to learn more about the Lake Worth Lagoon and all the progress that we've been making to restore the ecology on the lagoon. And as most of you know, much work has been done over the last 16 years to benefit the habitat, the water quality, increase public awareness of its valuable resources. $76 million for some 44 projects, including stormwater treatment, 260 acres of restoration, and creating living shorelines. But more needs to be done. Everyone understands by now, I hope, in this county, the ecological value of the lagoon. And we can't do it alone. We have many partners who are working together to improve all these aspects of the water quality, the habitat, preventing pollution, and involving the community in taking care of the lagoon. And we'll hear a lot more about all of those efforts today. But the lagoon has other values that are connected with the ecological value of the lagoon, primarily its economic value to the county. It's important to the success of our county and all of those cities that I mentioned, and really all of the cities within the entirety of Palm Beach County, even the inland areas, and I'll tell you why. People, of course, value water views and locations close to water, waterfront, and so the property values along these areas increases and produces the revenues that we in government use to pay for firefighters, police officers, teachers, and all of the services that everyone in the county uses. Many municipalities along the way that I mentioned have invested in the development of their public waterfronts, creating pedestrian access to the lagoon's shoreline and commercial and recreational boater access to shops and restaurants along the way, and that just enhances everyone's quality of life. There are also, as we know, many privately owned water-related businesses. Some of you are here this morning that sell goods or services related to lagoon activities, recreational swimming, diving, snorkeling, boating, fishing, and wildlife viewing. These businesses and industries are very important to our economy and to the tourism and to the Lake Worth Lagoon. And that brings us to tourism. It also supports our ecotourism effort here in Palm Beach County that we're trying to expand through our Tourist Development Council. That's why people come here to spend money on hotels, food, and certainly we want to, even though we're trying to clean up the Lake Worth Lagoon, I still feel we ought to keep alive the legend of the muck monster, because that attracts folks. And to that end, I've been provided this morning with a bag of the muck. And I'm going to pass it around.
I was the Monster Quest guy that started that. Did you know that?
No. There you go. See what it's all about here for us today. So shortly we'll hear from the many partners who've been working to increase the lagoon's value in all these aspects over the last 5 years and chart the course for the next 5 years of our efforts to enhance the Lake Worth Lagoon. So again, welcome. Thank you all for being here. We'll start our presentations this morning first by recognizing members of our legislative delegation who are here. I think I've only seen a couple, and I'm going to call actually on them to come up. We do have, so at this time, why don't I introduce Representative Rooney, Pat Rooney.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. I do have just a couple comments. It's always good to be back here at Palm Beach Atlantic with a fellow Philadelphian, Bill Fleming, who's president, and another one over here, that's true. I got a couple of prepared remarks because it's always better for me if I'm on script rather than just talking off the top of my head. The Lake Worth Lagoon Initiative is one of the largest partnerships in Palm Beach County in terms of habitat and water quality restoration. What started in 1998 has resulted in the construction of 44 projects totaling $76 million, $16.7 million of which has come from state grants. I am proud to help continue with the partnership with Governor Willing, $475,000 appropriated by the legislature this year towards 3 more projects and additional monitoring funds. Obviously, it is not something that I was able to do alone, as it took a lot of work from members of our delegation, so a tremendous amount of gratitude should be extended toward Representative Mark Pafford, who serves on the Ag and Natural Resources Appropriations Committee, Representative Bill Hager, Senator Jeff Clements, and to Senator Joe Negron, Chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, who's taken a very strong interest in supporting this and other important water projects for Palm Beach County. I'd also like to mention the help of my friend Representative Ben Albritton, Chair of the House Ag and Natural Resource Appropriations, who I spent many hours talking to about the Lake Worth Lagoon and other local projects. This is the first time the legislature has allocated funding for the lagoon since 2008. It's amazing how much easier it is to make things happen in Tallahassee when there's a little bit more money to spend. We hope that as our economy continues to improve, that the legislature continues to understand the importance of water resource investment, and more projects will have the opportunity to be funded in the lagoon. And again, thank you again for allowing me to speak and to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to a great session this morning, and especially to hear from Representative Pafford with his remarks. Thank you again, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative Rooney, and yes, we'll hear from our other esteemed member of the legislature a little later on. I do want to recognize my colleagues from the Board of County Commissioners. We have with us Commissioner Valashay. I think Vice Mayor Taylor is on the way, and I'd also like to introduce Commissioner Burdick and ask her to come forward to give us a few remarks about the Lake Worth Lagoon Initiative. Paulette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, everybody. It's a gorgeous day here in Palm Beach County. As Mayor Abrams said, this is the 4th Lake Worth Lagoon Symposium, but this is, in fact, the very first Lake Worth Lagoon initiative's first symposium. And since its inception in 2009, as an informal forum to meet together to talk about and ways in which we can better coordinate, and also the collective commitment that's necessary to restore the Lake Worth Lagoon. Today's symposium will highlight all of these successes over the many years, but also look at and plan the next 5 years of the Lake Worth Lagoon Initiative. And the initiative is led by a steering committee and 3 work groups. And of those work groups, we have many, many dedicated partners, including government agencies, researchers, environmental consultants, nonprofit organizations, private businesses, and hundreds of very dedicated volunteers. It's been my pleasure to serve on the Lake Worth Lagoon Initiative for the past 2 years, and at this time, I'd like to introduce the members of the steering committee. And with us this morning, we have from the Florida Department of Environmental Protections, Jennifer Smith. Jennifer, would you stand? Thank you. Way back in the back of the room. And we have from the South Florida Water Management District Governing Board member Tim Sargent. Thank you, Tim. And from the Florida Inland Navigation District, we have the newly appointed Commissioner Charlie Ismiger could not be with us this morning, but we have Janet Zimmerman. Janet, would you stand? Thank you for being here, Janet. And then from the Palm Beach County League of Cities is represented by Dawn Pardo, Chair of the City, Chair Pro Tem, the City of Riviera Beach. And we also have here today the alternate for the League of Cities, Robert Geslia. Thank you for being with us, Robert. And all of the steering committee members invite you to ask us any particular questions, or go to the Lake Worth Lagoon website, which is www.lwli.org, and to see the fantastic website that they have and all of the outreach materials that are included in it. And it's one of the things a lot of people don't know and understand the Lake Worth Lagoon. So you can direct them to that website.
Representative Pafford is in his third term in the Florida House of Representatives. He's currently the chair of the Palm Beach County Legislative Delegation, that's all of our members from the county, and serves on the Agriculture Natural Resources Appropriations Subcommittee. What you may not know is that early in his career, Representative Pafford worked as a naturalist with the Metro-Dade Parks Department at Arch Creek Park in North Miami. So that's where his early interest in the environment came from, and is likely one of the reasons that he's been a supporter of and advocate for the restoration and enhancement of Lake Worth Lagoon, other than it's also good politics. Representative Pafford was just recently named as an MVP legislator of 2013 by Audubon, Florida, for casting the lone vote against a bad version of the Everglades Forever Act. So that's political courage. Please welcome Representative Mark Pafford.
So I've got about 2 hours. Everybody comfortable? May as well have some fun. Well, thank you for the introduction. And it's been an interesting year as chair of the Palm Beach County Legislative Delegation. But really, it's only titled, I have to admit. When you work with folks like Representative Rooney, Pat Rooney, make sure you get that straight. It bothers them when you call him Tom. When you have an incredible team led by Palm Beach County's Todd Von Laren, and you've got an incredible team in so many other areas, including the private sector, South Florida Water Management, the things that they are able to communicate in Tallahassee, 400 miles away from this location. It really kind of blends together to make anybody's opportunity as chair of a delegation successful. So it really is a team effort. That said, let me back you in, if I may, into some of the backdoor politics in Tallahassee, because that's important to understand why the Lake Worth Lagoon project remains a priority in Tallahassee. Just to give you an idea of, you know, we're all here today. This is a room filled with folks at a great university. And I guess the president left. Okay, just let him know I said something nice, because I didn't graduate from here. This may crash. The political nature of Tallahassee makes every project that comes as a priority a very, very big competition. I sit on, as the president had said, the Natural Resources, I should say Agriculture and Natural Resources Appropriations Committee. And we had over 300 million projects like the Lake Worth Lagoon project come before the committee. And we spent almost 3 hours hearing about each one of those projects. Each one of those projects had merit on its own. Each one of those projects in the state could have been funded, and probably to some degree should have been funded, but there was only, and Todd, you can correct me, about $30 million appropriated to those water projects. 35, 40, what did it end up to be? Close to 50, okay. That's how things change in committees. So even still, really a drop in the bucket in terms of what was actually funded. And so, you know, at the end of the day, it's your participation in symposiums like this, but also your activity throughout the year that makes it easier to get this year, now I got this figure right, $475,000 for this project and numerous projects throughout the state. Tallahassee's an interesting place. The House Chamber has about 11 or 12 murals that surround the chamber. And each one of those murals, with the exception of one, it depicts some sort of water feature. It could be the ocean, it could be a pond, a lake, a river. So water and natural resources are a big priority in Tallahassee. Now, unlike the Senate, where they actually have a committee that is called Environment, Preservation and Conservation. I don't get over to the Senate very often. And it's a committee that's really set up to speak to natural resources and how we preserve and conserve things in the state of Florida. The House has a committee called Agriculture and Natural Resources, either policy or appropriations committees. And so inherent to those discussions that we have are everything from Everglades restoration to whether or not we're going to allow landowners to trade their own private property for state property. There's all kind of things that were going around this year. And so in that atmosphere, to have a Lake Worth Lagoon project bubble up is pretty impressive, and you should take great pride in that. The state, generally speaking, uses the process to prioritize. My own background is, as the commissioner mentioned, there you are. You're all by yourself. What's that about? Yeah, okay. My background is pretty easy. As a child, actually, I was visiting the yacht clubs in Miami, talking to people about the dangers of monofilament and how it's a danger to birds. And I'm glad you didn't say I was I think some people call it a naturalist. They call it a naturist, which is a nudist. Which could have turned the whole conversation around today. It would have been probably a lot more fun. This comes as an easy type of role for me in terms of what we can do to make things important. One of the big issues that we really didn't touch upon, and this is actually going to affect everybody in here along with the project. This year, for the first time, I put together with Monroe, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties a sea level rise workshop. How many people, just by interest, raise your hand, think that sea level rise is an issue? Okay, well you're right. And as Ernie from South Florida Water Management can tell you, the district has already spent about $50 million in improving water structures, largely because the issue is becoming very relevant to everybody from Key West, which has experienced a 9-inch rise in sea level over the last 100 years, to Palm Beach. If you've been to the beach lately, you've realized there's not much of a beach. And there was what, how many millions of, 26 million or so? $1 billion. No. Don't throw me off. 6 million funded in Palm Beach for beach renourishment, and statewide it was 26. Okay, I got that one. These are things that are going to continue to be a priority in the state of Florida. So, the lagoon is going to change, whether we want to know that or hear it or not. Sea level is rising, and that's going to affect everything that we're doing. Right now, that workshop that we put together, it's been the only workshop on sea level rise that's taken place in the legislature. There's been no discussion of the subject. Yet, as I mentioned, $50 million have gone to actually improving these structures throughout the state, I should say on the East Coast at least, and probably some of the West Coast, to prevent some of the effects that are occurring. And so, there's a lot that we really need to consider. It's some of these issues are big issues, and they're going to require not only a state and local commitment, but I would argue there'd probably be a federal commitment too, considering what changes are going to occur. And from what I understand and from what some of the data would demonstrate, the sea level rise is actually going to pick up. It would appear that the rise is going to be quicker than it has been, largely seen in the last century. So more to think about. I really appreciate the fact that this symposium is occurring. I think it is very important. I know you mentioned ecotourism. Florida has spent the last 100 years battling with itself. In 1916, the state of Florida created Royal Palm State Park. It was the Everglades Drainage District, which is kind of interesting that those things happened within the 24-month period. And then we've spent close to 100 years battling forces with preservation, with the business communities and agricultural communities, everybody wanting a share of what is really a very unique and very finite resource, which is water throughout the state. And as was mentioned earlier, this year, thanks to Representative Caldwell and our Speaker Designate, Representative Crisafulli, a deal was brokered that will put in place some resolution to that 100-year battle, where structures will be put in place to the west, lands will be used to complete basically restoration of the Everglades, and hopefully allow that source of water that makes it through Palm Beach County and ends up in the lagoon to be managed better, to provide the tools necessary to continue to improve water resources and quality, and hopefully conserve a lot of land along the way. And that was a real big issue too, and that was kind of quiet. It was a very historic moment in the chamber when that bill passed and when it was sent over to the Senate. After 100 years, this is, a little bit of how Tallahassee works. That bill became a bill on March 7th, and it left the House on March 22nd. And you think about it, it's close to a 3-week period, basically resolved all the issues that had occurred over 100 years. And that's how things work in Tallahassee. Anyway, I'll close just by thanking you for all of the things that you do. Lake Worth Lagoon is going to be a project that will be a project as long as we're here and future generations are here. And it's going to require a tremendous amount of effort and resources to make it a priority. As the state issues change, unfortunately, but somewhat fortunately, issues like the Lake Worth Lagoon are going to have to be made a priority. And we need to continue to remind people who replaced me, who replaced Representative Rooney, and all of our delegation, how important this project is to the well-being of the county, to the economic base, to the marine industries. This is why people come to South Florida. How many people, by the way, are from South Florida in this room? Raise your hand. Okay, how many people are not? Yeah, that's the case generally everywhere you go. And, how do we educate those folks that are coming to the state and inform them and advocate for things like these projects throughout the county? So thank you very much for allowing me to take a little time. Very much appreciate it. It's great to be home. Thank you for giving me a reason to shave this morning and put on a suit. And I look forward to seeing you all a little later. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Pafford, for those enlightening remarks. And yes, about half the crowd is always from out of town, about half natives. Mark mentioned that he was a naturalist, and I mentioned previously I grew up in Philadelphia, actually in Center City, Philadelphia, so I did not know, or I thought that trees grew out of concrete for the first 12 years of my life. But yet, one thing that does remain in common in typical crowds is that our kids have either been born here or are being raised here. And if we can promote good job and educational opportunities for them, they will stay here, which is another reason to support these environmental projects for them who are all here, and will really be an entirely different cohesive dynamic for our area, having all grown up here together.